Why this book exists. Okay, this is huge because it tells the truth about where the EQOS came from. It didn't come from me sitting in a chair dreaming up some clever model trying to sound smarter than the game. It came from being inside the machine. It came from going all in. In the book, I talk about how modern baseball development started becoming more useful. And I was interested immediately. My big league teams were doing work that made sense. I had friends in pro ball feed me info. I was coaching college ball. I wanted to understand everything I could, so I dove right in. Swings, movement, body patterns, sequencing, bat path, timing, output, all the toys, all the tech, all the language that was becoming part of the modern game. I eventually opened up a 10,000 square foot training facility and invested heavily in what modern development said mattered. Right? At Rapsodo, at HitTrax, blast motion, K-Vest, all the tools to measure what players were doing. And let me be very clear, it was very useful, still is. This is not anti-data. I love data. It's not anti-tech. I love technology. It's not anti-development. Its development is massive. Right? That would all be very lazy. And it would be dishonest. Data gave me better language. Data gives better feedback. I love it, right? If you're not sure, you're guessing. Better ways to see pieces of performance that used to be invisible, right? We were guessing. But then something started bothering me. And this is where the whole thing begins. Because two players could have similar tools, similar movements, similar output, right? Similar data, ability, and yet completely different game performance. Right? One guy could look unbelievable in training and disappear in games. Another kid could look less impressive in the controlled setting, right? Just less sexy on screen, less impressive in the cage, and still find a way to compete when things got uncomfortable. Okay, and that bothered me. Not in a small way. Bothered me because once you see that enough times, you have to start asking better questions. You can't keep pretending the answer is always the swing, or the mechanics, or the sequence. You can't keep pretending the answer is always one more drill, right? Or one more metric or cue, right? One more private lesson or video breakdown. At some point you have to ask, what the hell are we actually looking at? Are we evaluating tools, or are we evaluating what a player can actually access under pressure? Because those are not the same thing. And this is where baseball gets fooled. Baseball loves a clean environment, especially now, the modern day, the cage, the bullpen, the showcase, the controlled rep, the front side video, numbers on the screen. Again, none of that is meaningless. It's important, but it is incomplete because baseball doesn't happen in a lab. It happens inside pressure, inside failure, inside delay, comparison, right? Inside a parent's face in the stands, inside a coach's frustrated tone, inside a bad call, right? Inside a strikeout or a slump, inside a player wondering if he's still who he thought he was 10 minutes ago. Now, that's not just a baseball environment. It's a psychological environment. It's a nervous system environment. It's an identity environment. And the player still has to hit. Right? Still got to go out and throw strikes. Still got to catch. Still got to be able to make the throw. Still has to stay available. And that's the word, available, because there's a massive difference between having talent and having access to the talent. I've seen it for years. We've all seen it. A player can have the swing, can have the arm, can have the body, right? It can go online. It can have the data. Player can understand exactly what he's supposed to do, and still, when the game gets uncomfortable, can lose access to himself. Right? And that's the hole I kept seeing. And that's why this book exists, because modern baseball development gave us a lot. It's still giving us a lot. The ability to measure. Right? It gives us precision. It's giving us tools. It's giving us better ways to understand movement and output. But it's not fully answering the question that every coach, parent, scout, and player eventually runs into. Why does one player's talent travel into the game while another player's does not? Why does one kid look like a monster in training and then look like he's carrying a piano on his back when the lights come on? Why does another kid, maybe less impressive on paper, still compete cleanly when things go sideways? Why does one player recover after a mistake while another lets one bad rep infect the next five? Why does one player miss, reset, and keep competing while another turns a miss into absolute panic, terrible body language, overthrowing, right? Nibbling, that disaster inning? And the answer is not always mechanics. It's not always confidence. It's not always toughness. A lot of the time, the answer is system stability. And that's what I started seeing. Like I always say, once I saw it, I could not unsee it. The player is not just the swing. The player is not just their arm. The player is not just their body or their stat line. They have a system, and that system includes emotion, thought, body, attention, pressure, load, recovery, identity, and the ability to stay functional when baseball stops feeling comfortable. That is the EQOS, the Emotional Intelligence Operating System. And that's why this book exists, not because baseball needs another mental game slogan. God knows we have so many of those, right? You just roll up to a park one day and listen for them. Hey, have some confidence, relax, trust it, don't think, slow the game down, compete. Perfect. Put it on a t-shirt, sell it at a tournament, $35. Still does not tell the kid what to do when the body is speeding up and its thoughts are getting loud, right? When parents are tense or the coach is pacing and the last at bat is still living rent-free in his skull. That's the problem. Baseball's been using shallow language for deep issues. And when you use shallow language for deep issues, you do not solve the issue. You make everybody feel like they just talked about it. That's not development. So this book exists because I wanted a better lens, a more honest lens, a way to look at performance and say, what is the player carrying? What can he actually hold? What leaks first? What breaks down under load? Why does one player stay available while another loses access? That's the real question. It's not just can he hit or can he throw? What's his exit velo? What does the swing look like? Again, important, all important. Can he still use it when the game punches back? That's the separator. And this is also where I had to admit something. Modern development is incomplete on its own. It's not wrong, it's incomplete. And that distinction matters. Because if you hear incomplete as wrong, you're probably protecting something. Maybe your business model, maybe your ego, the certifications you got online, maybe your little shrine to exit velo, right? And slow motion video. Okay, relax. Nobody's stealing your Rapsodo or telling you not to use it. The point is not that tools are bad. The point is that tools are only valuable if the players can still access himself when those tools are needed. A beautiful swing that disappears under pressure is not a beautiful swing in the way people think it is. It's a beautiful swing in a clean room. Okay, the game does not care. The game asks harder questions. Can you stay connected to it when you're uncomfortable? And that question changed everything for me. It pushed me deeper into behavior, into psychology, into observation, into nervous system function, into performance under pressure. It's not just the old mental performance coaching stuff anymore. Because the more I watched, the more I realized that breakdown usually showed up before the result. We're done with putting Band-Aids on things. Right? The body changed, the pace changed, the breathing changed, the face changed, the language changed. The player started trying to control instead of compete. He started trying to not fail instead of just playing clean. He started trying to survive instead of staying available. Right? And then everybody talks about mechanics. It's backwards. Once you realize it's backwards, you can't coach the same way. You can't parent the same way. You can't evaluate. You can't develop players the same way once you get that. Because you're not just looking at the miss now. You're looking at what changed before the miss. That's where the truth lives. The miss is often the end of the story. Behavior is the beginning. And that's why the EQOS matters. It gives us language for what we have always seen but named well. Right? The talented kid who keeps being described as in his head, which is usually just adult code for, I don't know what I'm looking at here and I don't know how to deal with it. That's not good enough anymore. The game's changed. The environment has changed. Players are caring more, right? Again, travel ball, showcases, social media, rankings, private instruction, data overload, comparison, massive parent investment. They all being fear of falling behind, right? A constant low-grade panic that if they're not being seen, they're disappearing, which is not true, by the way. But it's a lot to carry. And then we wonder why the kid looks tight. No kidding. We're walking into the box carrying baseball, identity, family, money, Instagram, rankings, future dreams, comparison, and a mechanical cue from 3 different coaches. Then, again, as I always say, some adult yells, "Hey man, just relax up there." Perfect, right? I think you got it, coach. That's it. This book exists because players need better than that. Parents need better than that. Coaches need better than that. Organizations need better than that. We need to stop pretending that more information automatically equals better development. Sometimes more information becomes the interference. Sometimes more help becomes more load. Sometimes more coaching becomes more noise. Sometimes the player is not undertrained, he's overloaded. That's one of the core truths in this book. A lot of players today are not undertrained. They're overloaded. And overloaded players do not always need more. Sometimes they just need less, right? Less noise, a cleaner language, better timing. When I say better timing, I mean better timing from coaches and parents and what they say. Better observation, just more stable environment, more stable practice sessions. A coach who can see the state, not just the swing. Parents who can separate the kid from the outcome. Player who can start noticing what changes inside him before the game has to teach him the hard way. And that's the work. And that's why this book exists. Because if we keep misreading the breakdown, then we keep applying the wrong fix. If the issue is capacity and we call it confidence, well, we miss. If the issue is load and we call it laziness, we miss. If the issue is nervous system instability and we call it toughness, yeah, well, guess what? We miss. If the issue is information overload and we add another cue, then again, we're going to miss. And when we miss long enough, it costs. Outcome equals awareness times capacity. That is the key equation. A player's performance is not just what he can do physically. It's also how quickly he notices internal changes and how much pressure, discomfort, and instability a system can carry before behavior, decision-making, and timing start to distort. Okay, that's the backbone. Not because we need more formulas than baseball. Baseball's got enough. Baseball's got enough people trying to turn the sport into a full algebra class. This formula exists because it organizes reality. Outcome equals awareness times capacity. It gives coaches, parents, and players a way to see what is already happening. And that's the whole point of this section. Why this book exists. It exists because there was a missing variable. And that missing variable kept showing up in real players. It kept showing up in recruiting and scouting and player development and conversations with parents and kids who look gifted but are unreliable, and kids who look less flashy but somehow stayed usable when the game got heavy. Okay, that's not random. That was the system underneath performance. So the book exists to say, look there, look under the swing, look under the numbers, look under the mechanics, look under the confidence talk after the game for an hour that's unnecessary. Look at the player as a system. Okay, because players are not just mechanics, not just tools, they're not just outputs, they're systems. And if we want to develop them honestly, we have to understand the system underneath the swing. And that's the whole point. It's not to reject modern baseball, it's to complete it. Add the piece that explains why the tools sometimes travel and why sometimes they don't. It's to help players become more usable. It's a key word. I say it all the time, stay usable. To help coaches read earlier, help parents stop adding weight without realizing it. To help development become less reactive and more accurate, because accuracy matters, precision matters. In baseball, if your read is wrong, your fix is wrong. And too many players are getting the wrong fix. And then that fix keeps getting fixed. This book exists because the game is asking better questions than baseball culture has been answering. The game is asking, can you hold pressure? Can you stay available? Can you recover? Can you regulate? Can you stay connected to the task? Can you still access yourself when the environment stops cooperating? These are not motivational questions. These are development questions. Like I always say, once you see it, the entire game changes. You stop chasing only what flashes and you start building what holds. That's why the book exists.